Last night I got a recapture. There was something horribly wrong with it. Have you ever seen a photo recapture? Instead of a checkbox, it's a low-quality photo split into 16 square sections. It'll say something like, select all squares with street signs, and you have to click every square that contains a street sign. At 11 p.m. on Sunday night, I got one while downloading free stock images. It was a photo of a path through a forest. Select all squares with people. Okay, that was easy enough. In the center, there was a jogging woman in pink shorts. She took up a few of the middle squares, and I clicked them all. I pressed verify. It didn't work. Select all squares with people, the message said again. I took off my glasses, placed them on the table, and squinted at the image. No, she wasn't the only person. Several feet off the trail, at the very edge of the image, I could see it. The edge of an arm clad in a black sweatshirt with a pink thumb poking out. I triumphantly clicked the 2 squares containing it. Verify. The image blinked as it refreshed. Then the same text popped up, as if to taunt me. Select all squares with people. I rubbed my eyes and stared at the image. The trees cast low-resolution, blocky shadows across the path. The woman's ponytail swung to the left, mid-motion. Patches of yellow sunlight dappled the surrounding forest. I studied some of the darker shadows, far from the path, but none of them matched the silhouette of a person. I glanced to the edge of the image. No. The image had changed. The arm at the edge of the photo was now further in the frame, taking up 3 squares instead of 2. Bulky shoulders and dark jeans followed it, and the jogger was just slightly further down the path, as if she'd just taken a step. The touchpad was slick under my fingers. My heart pounded in my chest. Slowly, I dragged the cursor over the 3 squares and clicked them. Verify. The image blinked. Select all squares with people. I leapt back from the computer. The image was different again. The man was further in the frame, taking up 5 squares. His hand was stretched out towards the jogger, just inches from her shoulder, and the jogger, she was turned towards him, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Click, click, click. I furiously clicked all the squares. Verify. Loading. Select all squares with people. The man's face was finally in frame. The hood of his sweatshirt was pulled tightly over his head. A translucent Halloween mask poked out from underneath, pressed against his features. His hand was latched onto her arm. She was screaming. Click, click, click. Verify. The image disappeared. I'd passed the recapture. I reported what I'd seen to the police. At first they thought I was crazy, but as I gave a detailed description of the images, they frantically took notes and asked me questions. The woman matched the description of a local woman, Kylie Johnson. She went missing a week ago, during an afternoon jog on the wooded Lakewood Trail. She was never found. I picked up a hitchhiker. I was driving through rural New Jersey when I saw him. A hitchhiker, standing by the side of the road, surprisingly well dressed, black suit, slicked back hair, narrow briefcase. Now, I know I shouldn't pick up hitchhikers, but I'm 6'4", 230 pounds, with all kinds of hunting equipment in the back of my truck. It's not like this prissy-ass businessman is going to beat me to death and leave me on the side of the road. Besides, I need gas money. Hey, man, I said, pulling over to the side of the road. I'll give you a lift if you pay me for gas. Of course, he said in a polite, almost British accent. He reached for his wallet and pulled out 3 crisp $20 bills. This enough? I grinned. That's way more than enough. I greedily snatched the money from him and clicked the locks. "Get in, bud." He climbed in. His blue eyes shifted from the crumpled Wendy's wrapper on the dashboard to the mysterious sticky goo on the middle console. "Sorry, the car is not clean. I'm going hunting," I said, turning back onto the highway. "Hunting? Interesting," he said, in a strangely enthusiastic tone. "Have you always liked to hunt?" "No. It's the funniest thing. Never thought I'd ever hunt. Love animals. Got 3 dogs at home. But there are so many deer around these parts. When the winter comes, a lot of them starve to death. Not to mention all the car accidents they cause." I trailed off, and we fell into uncomfortable silence. "Just hunting for the day, then?" "No. My buddy Matt and I will be out there for the whole weekend." He let out a laugh. "The whole weekend? Your wife's a saint for letting you go." "My wife? How did he—" But then my eyes fell on the steering wheel, and the silver ring on my finger. "Ah, yeah. Mary's a doll. She's actually pregnant, 5 months with a little girl." He gave me a crooked smile. "A girl, huh?" "Yeah." I could feel him staring at me long after we had fallen into silence. It made me feel uncomfortable. I clicked on the radio. "How did you meet Matt?" he asked, fiddling with the dial. All that came through was static. That's a weird question, I thought. He and Mary were close friends, so when we got married, I got to know him well." The man said. He stroked his chin thoughtfully, and I was suddenly reminded of a psychiatrist. "Are you a psychiatrist?" I blurted out. He laughed. "Definitely not. I work in finance." "What type of finance?" It was my turn to ask the questions now. "Futures," he replied noncommittally. I glanced over him. A small smile was on his lips, and I noticed his fingers had gravitated from his lap to the briefcase at his feet. He undid the clasps. The case creaked open. "What's in your briefcase?" I asked. "Work." "What kind of—" His long fingers disappeared into the darkness of the case. He was pulling something out. My body began to seize up. The steering wheel felt like ice under my fingers. "I have a lot of hunting equipment back there," I said. "So you better not be—" I stopped. He was only pulling out a sheet of paper. For a few minutes he was quiet, reading the paper, intently and silently, as if his life depended on it. His fingers slid over it as they traced the text. Then he slipped it back into the case and snapped it shut. What was he reading, I thought. But before I could get the question out, he turned towards me. I could barely see his face in my peripheral vision, but I knew he was staring at me, for minutes on end. Then he broke the silence. "Don't go hunting," he said, his blue eyes boring into me. "What?" "Turn the car around. Go home to Mary." "What?" "She needs you." He paused. "Madeline needs you." I paled. I never told him we were going to name our baby Madeline. "How did you—" "He's going to make it look like an accident," he said, his voice gravelly and halting. "Just a simple hunting accident. The most punishment he'll endure is 35 minutes in the police station, writing out his statement. But let me off at the diner, up ahead. I like their Cobb salad very much." "Matt's going to kill me? What are you talking about?" He turned to me, eyes wide. "What are you talking about?" "About what you just said. All I said is, I'd like you to let me off at the diner, please." He pointed to the exit, curving off the highway. "You're going to miss it if you don't slow down." With a shaking hand, I clicked on my blinker, pulled off the exit into the parking lot. My heart pounded in time with the clicks of the cooling engine. "Thank you for the ride," he said, pulling his briefcase out with him. "Have a good drive, will you?" I couldn't squeak out a reply before the door slammed shut. I didn't believe him. but my nerves were too shot to continue the trip either. I texted Matt that I was sick, turned around and went home to Mary. Mary was thrilled. Matt was disappointed. A little too disappointed, if you ask me. A month later, after ignoring most of Matt's calls and texts, which became increasingly frequent and desperate, I heard a faint thumping noise at my door. When I flicked on the porch light, there was Matt, hunched over our doorknob, holding a lockpick. We called the police. Since then, life has been great. Just a few months later, our wonderful little Madeline was born, and as soon as we got back from the hospital, on our doorstep was a little teddy bear, a pink bow sewed on his head. There wasn't a return address or a card of any kind, but I think I know who's it from. I'm a hitman, but I'm not allowed to kill my next target. Michael Zinski wasn't my usual type of client. He wasn't a spurned lover looking for revenge, or a murderer looking to snuff out witnesses to his crime, or a husband hungry for his wife's insurance policy. He was just an ordinary guy, looking out for his sister. I wouldn't normally resort to such drastic measures, but Harold has become so awful. Treats her like garbage, doesn't give a rat's ass about her or anything except for that stupid band he sings in with his work buddies. He blew his nose loudly. You understand that, right, Switchblade? I winced. That's just my alias, Michael. You shouldn't, actually call me that in casual conversation. Then what should I call you? I blinked. Clearly, he had never done anything like this before. Do you have the cash? His eyes darted around the diner. Then, from his pocket, he pulled out a wad of $100 bills. You can't just, they'll see it. I hastily threw him one of the napkins. Wrap it up in that, and do it discreetly. He wasn't discreet, but thankfully the diner was nearly empty at this hour. It's twice your usual rate, he whispered, very loudly. I wanted to give you a big tip, so you'll do a good job. And I don't want you to kill him. What? Michael, you know I'm a hitman, right? Yes, but Nancy needs his income. She's been a housewife for the past 20 years. No work experience, no education past high school. There's no way she could support herself on her own. You could support her, with the cash you just gave me. He shook his head. I've tried. She won't let me. Cares too much. I sighed. Well, okay, suppose I did take you up on this job. What do you even want me to do with him, if not kill him? I don't know. Scare him, threaten him, just make him stop being so terrible to her. But it's risky business. I mean, he'll know what I look like, and you'll go on Sunday morning. He'll be napping alone in the house, won't even see you come in. Michael looked down at the table and then added, it's the only time he's ever alone in the house, the only time he lets her leave. My belligerence evaporated, and I felt a pang of sympathy. It's that bad? He nodded. Okay, I'm in. The house was a tiny little thing, shoved into the gap between a massive brownstone and a dilapidated food mart. It would be a challenge to do it without any witnesses. Good. I like a challenge. I snuck in through the backyard, creatively using the various bushes and fencing to hide from onlookers. I then stepped into the open window, like Michael told me to do. The knife was heavy in my hands. I turned left at the kitchen and crept into the living room. In the center stood a microphone, a music stand, and some sheet music, presumably from Harold and his band. Nancy's needle-post supplies were pushed into the corner, taking up as little space as they possibly could. I walked into the next room, and there, in the armchair, sat Harold, fast asleep. I retrieved the chloroform from my pocket. With the grace of a dancer, I lay it against his nose. And then I set to work. I visited Nancy myself a few weeks later. I like to do that sometimes. Pose as a friendly neighbor, see how their lives have changed in the wake of my work. Yes, I know it increases my chances of getting caught, but as I said, I like a challenge. When she flung open the door, her eyes were bright, and she wore a smile. "Hi, I'm Smith Baker," I said. "Just moved here, a few houses away from you, behind the food mart." "Oh, how nice. Please come in." She led me into the living room, and I smiled. The music stand and other equipment were thrown haphazardly in the corner. Nancy's needlepoint was sprawled across the sofa, taking up as much space as it possibly could. "Smith, this is my husband, Harold." He just stared at me, still, silent, pale. And then he started shaking wildly, clawing at the raw, red marks across his throat. "Oh, sorry. I should explain." She sat down with a small smile. "He's not trying to be rude. It's just that, well, he had an accident a few weeks ago, and now he can't speak, I'm afraid." She patted his arm comfortingly as he clung to her. "Or sing, unfortunately." An accident. That mysteriously cut his vocal cords and left the rest of him untouched. I could see Harold's hands shaking, his lip trembling. I wonder if he was thinking about the first thing I said to him when the chloroform wore off. "If you don't treat Nancy right, I'll slit your throat again. And next time, you'll lose more than just your voice." I smiled at Harold. "Would you like a cookie?" I asked, holding out the tray. "I baked them myself."